Well, let's do The Falling, which is the new film by Carol Morley, written and directed by Carol Morley. One of the things that I really enjoy about cinema is seeing a movie that you see and you kind of experience it, but then actually what happens is that the movie really starts to work its spell on you in the hours and the days and the weeks, whatever, afterwards. And the more you think about it, the more you start seeing. And I've really had this case with The Falling. I saw it at the beginning of this week, and ever since I saw it, it's been playing on my mind. It's been making me, make connections with other movies, many of which are, I'm sure, completely fanciful. But it's really sparked something interesting, and it's the more I think about it, the more that the more potential it seems to have. Anyway, so the story, nominally, the narrative is set in an English girls' school in 1969. And it's sort of in this kind of like this Wordsworthian pastoral idyll. There's a pond, there's a sort of sacred oak. The whole thing is filmed by Agnes Goddard, who's a brilliant cinematographer. And we are introduced to this group of girls, teenage girls, and at the centre is a sort of very intense relationship between these two girls. One of them, Lydia Lamb is her surname, significantly, I think. And the other one is Abby, who seems to be the sort of the golden girl. And they're having almost like a Heavenly Creatures style relationship, a very, very intense relationship. But there's a threat to that relationship, which is presented by the fact that Abby is now having backseat dalliances with boys, which seems to be becoming between her and Lydia, and the attentions of Lydia's brother, Kenneth, who's interested in the occult and magic, spelt with a K, don't help matters. And then something strange and tragic and almost so unexplained happened. And Lydia finds herself bereft and on her own. And the next thing you know is that she starts experiencing fainting fits. And as she experiences these fainting fits, other members of the school start to experience them too. And they are, as the headmistress and the teachers watch, the girls start going into this strange rapture, which is somewhere between a collapse and a dance. It's not just a faint, it's some kind of really weird communal rapture. And as it goes on, the teachers are more and more convinced that the whole thing is a put-up job and that Lydia is faking it. Here's a clip.
You'll never get rid of me.
I will not tolerate such conduct in this school.
You all know something is wrong.
Get her out.
Are you not going to fight for the truth? What have you been reduced to?
Prefects, get her out.
Inertia? You're all asleep. To be free, you must be conscious. Kill the system! It's killing you!
Up, up, up.
Wonderful sequence in which he's attempting to play everything down by playing that hymn, and that will make everything right. So Lydia Lamont, they're played by Maisie Williams, who people will know from Game of Thrones. Now, the film, to some extent, has its roots in the idea of, mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness, it's better known. This is something which Carol Morley has dealt with in the past. And there are certain cases that you can look to, like the Leroy High School case a couple of years ago. There was a case in Bolton some years ago, in which there are outbreaks of what are described as conversion disorder. People, it's usually described as being a hysterical reaction. People come to believe that they are ill. People come to believe they're having fainting fits. And the general sort of way of reading this is that, in fact, the whole thing is actually, it's a psychological unbalance as opposed to anything weird. And what I really love about The Falling, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. What I really like about it is the fact that it has a thrilling ambiguity about exactly what's going on. On the one hand, there is a very sort of strong-rooted psychological reading, which is that it is to do with trauma and it is to do with people imitating each other, and it's to do with a kind of shared communal madness. But as I said, the faints themselves aren't just that. They are something defiant. As you kind of heard from that clip, there becomes an act of defiance about the fainting. There becomes something rapturous about them. There becomes something which is actually oddly empowering. Then you start looking at the cinematography, and obviously Carol Morley has talked about Picnic at Hanging Rock as being a touchstone tonal text, that sense of the uncanny, of the weird, but you're not quite sure whether something uncanny has happened or whether something, that's very, very down to earth. But actually, when I was watching it, I was thinking, well, this reminds me of Don't Look Now. There are these kind of subliminal flashes which seem to evoke Nick Rogue, the way that Nick Rogue would always do that shuffling time backwards and forwards, something he also did with Donald Cammell on Performance. And then I start thinking about the water and the trees, and this seems to me to be a very Japanese ghost story. So you start thinking of Hideo Nakata and Dark Water. And then I start thinking about it as a film which has the same subject matter as Ken Russell's The Devils, in which we have, a group of Ursuline nuns who become sort of somehow engulfed in what may be this hysterical reaction. They all think they're demonically possessed, but in fact it seems to be a political reading of that story. And that made me then think of those movies like Stations of the Cross recently, or that wonderful film by Hans Christian Schmidt, Requiem. And the next thing I know, I'm thinking, and it's like an Italian giallo. It's like a film where, you remember you saw...
What?
Okay,
I'm trying
here we go.
Here with all your references.
Here we go. Do you remember Barbarian Sound Studio?
Yes.
Do you remember the film that they're making in Barbarian Sound Studio, The Equestrian Vortex? Yeah, so fine. So it's that kind of, so the sort of weird, sinister, late 1960s, early 1970s, eerie chiller with these sort of strange psychosexual undertones. And then there's the music, which is done by Tracy Thorn, which has this kind of homemade, almost Wicker Man-like quality. One of the lovely things about the Wicker Man is that the Wicker Man is basically a musical. In fact, it needed to become a stage musical. And in many ways, this is kind of the same thing. There's an experimental school orchestra who are involved in it, and the music is somehow the thing that links between these two worlds. And then in the back of it, there's this very, very down-to-earth stuff. There is stuff that actually this is grounded in, research about mass psychogenic outbreaks. This is also to do with it's 1969, so it's the change between the 60s and the 70s. We see men walking in space, but Lydia's mother is confined to the kitchen. And all this stuff is going on at the same time. And what I really, really like about it is, that phrase that I've used before that Friedkin said, which is that, the best cinema gives to you what you bring to it. And I'm certain that an awful lot of the things that I'm seeing in the film were absolutely not intentional as far as the writer-director was concerned. I'm sure there are loads of things in there that were intended that I'm not seeing at all. But the indication to me of the strength of the film is how much it's like a reflective surface that allows all those interpretations, all those ideas to bounce back at you. It has very, very strong performances. I think Maisie Williams is absolutely terrific. Many of the performers are people who are sort of fairly new to the screen. And it's lyrical and ambitious. Now, it's not flawless. It does have faults. I think in the final act, it oversteps its narrative mark and it attempts to tie up loose ends which are better left untied, frankly. But in its ambition, in its kind of strange, uncanny British magic realist ambition, I think it's doing something that's really quite striking. And I think that everyone who sees it will see a different film. And I think that in many ways, I'm even starting to think that the flaws with it are things that are part of why I like it so much. It's really terrific. It's called The Falling, and you should see it.